The moment the mask fell, the great hall of Egypt was filled with tension like a held breath. Joseph, ruler of the land, stood before the men who bowed low before him, unaware that the power towering above them was once the boy they had cast away. His face, trained to command and conceal, finally broke under the weight of memory. The dam within him burst. Joseph ordered every Egyptian servant to leave the room. Footsteps faded, doors closed, and silence wrapped the space like a veil. Only brothers remained, bound by blood and by a past soaked in regret. Then Joseph revealed himself. His voice shook as he told them who he truly was, the brother they had sold into slavery years ago. Fear rippled through the brothers. Their faces drained of color. The past rose before them like a ghost they could not escape. Tears louder than thunder. Joseph wept with such force that the sound echoed through the palace halls and spilled into the ears of Pharaoh's household. These were not quiet tears but the sobs of a soul long divided and finally made whole. His brothers stood frozen, unable to speak, crushed by shock and dread. Joseph saw their terror and moved toward them, urging them to come closer. He spoke not as a judge but as family. He explained that although they had sold him, it was God who had sent him ahead to Egypt. Famine had gripped the world, and God had woven suffering into salvation, placing Joseph where he could preserve life. He told them that God had made him a father to Pharaoh, lord of his house, and ruler of all Egypt, not for pride, but for purpose. From guilt to grace. Joseph looked into the eyes that once avoided his cries and told them not to be distressed or angry with themselves. He reframed their betrayal as part of a greater design. What they meant for harm, God had transformed into deliverance. He revealed that the famine would last 5 more years and warned that without action, their entire family would perish. Joseph commanded them to return swiftly to Canaan, to tell their father Jacob that his son Joseph was alive and exalted, and to bring him to Egypt. He promised provision, protection, and closeness. The family would live in the land of Goshen, near him, safe from hunger and want. Embraces that healed the past. Joseph embraced Benjamin first, the only brother who shared both mother and father. Tears flowed freely as years of separation collapsed into a single moment. Benjamin wept with him, the younger brother who had never raised a hand against him. Then Joseph embraced each of his brothers in turn. One by one, walls of fear crumbled. After the tears, words finally came. Conversation replaced silence. Brotherhood, once broken, began to breathe again. Outside the chamber, news spread quickly. Pharaoh himself heard that Joseph's brothers had come, and it pleased him. He commanded that they be given the best of Egypt, wagons for the journey, and rich provisions. A journey back to the father. Joseph gave his brothers garments and supplies for the road. To Benjamin he gave even more, a sign of love but also trust restored. He instructed them not to quarrel on the way, knowing how easily guilt could turn to blame. As they departed, Egypt watched wagons roll toward Canaan, heavy with grain and hope. These were not the same men who had once returned home with a blood-stained coat and a lie. They now carried truth, reconciliation, and the astonishing news that death had given way to life. Meaning and lessons of Genesis 45. Genesis chapter 45 is a turning point where hidden truth is revealed, guilt is met with mercy, and God's invisible hand becomes unmistakably clear. The chapter shows how suffering can serve a purpose beyond human understanding. Joseph does not deny the evil done to him, but he sees that God worked through it to bring preservation rather than destruction. The story teaches that reconciliation is possible even after deep betrayal, but it requires humility, honesty, and grace. Joseph's forgiveness does not erase the past, it redeems it. His tears show that forgiveness is not denial of pain, but transformation of it. Another central lesson is divine sovereignty. Human choices, even sinful ones, do not overpower God's plan. Instead, God weaves them into a greater story of life, survival, and hope. What appears broken may be precisely what God uses to save many. Finally, the chapter teaches that identity matters. Joseph no longer hides who he is. When truth is revealed, healing begins. Families are restored, fear loosens its grip, and the future opens where despair once ruled. Genesis 45 reminds us that grace can be louder than guilt, that tears can water reconciliation, and that even the darkest chapters may be preparing the way for redemption.